Hello, and welcome to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. I'm your host, Tori Rerick, PharmD and holistic healer. Each episode features a candid conversation about how connecting with the cannabis plant has enhanced an individual's wellness journey. Here to honor the plant, talk about healing, and have fun. Today's guest stands on the platform that balance is essential and shares how cannabis helps her do anything on her own terms. Dr. Alexander E.L. speaks on how the plant supported her through depression, helped her keep her therapy appointments, and show up vibrantly in all areas of her life. As a bridge for patients who are new to cannabis, she reminds us that it's okay to change your mind, to not know, and to do new things for yourself. Keep listening to hear how she is of service to the plant and the people as an educator. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have Dr. Troy Alexander E.L., who was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, and is a graduate of American University of Antigua Medical School. She's board certified and trained in internal medicine from Stroger Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. In 2018, Dr. Alexander E.L. established higher-level healthcare as a response to the discrepancy of minority access to medical cannabis. Her company has been providing patients with education about cannabis and certifying qualifying patients to obtain medical cannabis cards. This not only allows access, but patients are also well-informed on the therapeutic benefits of cannabis. Thank you, Dr. Troy, for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here and chat with you.
Yes. So what I like to do to break the ice for the episode is select a card from my highly inspired Oracle deck, the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck, and hear about your experience connecting that card with cannabis. And so your card today happens to be Warrior, and the imagery is of the shield. I bring in elements of the root chakra. So yeah, let us know, what's your experience connecting the Warrior and cannabis?
So I think that this has been me starting a cannabis business has been my way of showing myself that I can do anything. And do it on my own terms. When I got into medicine and going to medical school, it was one of those things that it's like I stayed on the path because it was what I was already doing. Like I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. So that's what you do. You go to school, you finish, you become a doctor. But I wasn't necessarily being fulfilled in the jobs that I had. So I worked initially as a primary care doctor. And I wasn't happy. I didn't have any joy. I was very depressed. I developed a lot of anxiety. And then I started learning more about cannabis. I started the cannabis business maybe a year or two after I left that job. And it just allowed me to really dive into myself and start to heal myself and start to build myself from the ground up. So talking about that root chakra and that warrior and that energy of power and fierceness, but also kind of embracing that feminine aspect of me as well. I think it ties in 100%. So that's awesome.
Thank you for sharing that. I saw so many parallels between our stories, and yeah, being in the medical field was something I had picked out early on in life, or maybe influenced to choose early on in life. And I enjoyed it. And I was really good at following directions and doing what people told me. And that was the system I was in. But cannabis has been this opportunity to like merge all of my talents and my passions together with wellness. So I love that.
100%. That totally sums it up.
What was your original perception of cannabis, and has it shifted?
It has totally shifted. On Twitter, these last couple of days, there's been a debate about a 180 versus a 360. And so it has been a 180, which is the correct way to say it, and not a 360, because I did not start and stop in the same place. But cannabis for me, in college was one of those things where I hung out with kids who smoked. I may, smoke a little bit here and there, but it wasn't my thing. I felt like it was for people who didn't get their work done, who weren't focused, who hung out and sat on the steps and just looked goofy and laughed all the time and didn't have any real priorities. And then, like I said, alluded to a little bit earlier, around 2016, 2017, maybe, I started to know, well, I didn't know that I was depressed at the time, but I was introduced to medical cannabis by someone who was a patient. And when I consumed, I felt like myself. I was cooking. I was able to clean up a little bit. I was happy. I was just happy. And I didn't necessarily relate the two together. But as I started to learn more about the plant and started to consume more frequently on the underground market, I learned that this is actually what's helping me, that along with therapy, but it was actually helping me so much. And then I started as my side business, or my personal business, as I like to say. In my personal business, I started to interact with more people and going to cannabis events and really learning about the medicinal aspects of cannabis and getting other people's stories and learning about how much the plant has helped them as well. And my perception totally changed. I started talking to family members, and family became more open about whether or not they consume, or even wanting to try products, wanting to try CBD, wanting to understand what this whole thing was about. And so it has really made me an advocate for the plant, I'll say, for people who want to know more and don't necessarily want the stigma or have been a part of perpetuating the stigma themselves. And it's okay to say, like, my mind changed.
Right.
And I tell people that that's okay for your mind to change, because if our minds never changed, then where will we be? So, So yeah, it has definitely made a major shift. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have been successful, is because I don't try to judge people with where they are. It's really like, once you experience it, you'll see the difference. And I tell people, I say, you're going to breathe. Mm-hmm. What you're doing right now is not, you're not able to breathe. And once you start consuming cannabis properly and in the way that is meant for whatever chronic condition or condition at the time you may be experiencing, you're going to breathe and you're going to get it. And so that's been really a part of my mission these last few years.
When you were speaking about it being okay to change your mind, I was thinking about vulnerability and how vulnerable of a place it is to be like, I was wrong, or I didn't have the full story, I changed my mind, and how that really still ties into being a warrior, because it takes strength to be in that place of not knowing, or like receiving and learning when you felt like you had it figured out. And also, especially in like the medical field, I found that to be one of my biggest challenges, was to play expert and also feel like I didn't know what the F was going on. Also 100%. Feeling like, how do I keep all of this information in my head? Also, I don't have to do that. Also, there's community, it's, it's kind of, it's a tricky place to be in.
Very much so. And so much of what you're taught is that you have to be the expert, and people are coming. There's such a burden for some people. Some people don't view it that way, but it can be placed on you when you accept the responsibility of being a medical professional, because people look to you as if, you get that degree and you just know everything. Totally. And one good thing about me is that I've always been very honest, sometimes to a fault, to say like, hey, I don't know. I'm new at this. I don't know the answer, but I will look it up. And when I find the answer, I'll let you know. And if I don't, then we'll find somebody who does know. And some patients appreciate that. They appreciate the honesty or the willingness to learn more with them. And some people are like, oh no, I need somebody who knows already. And that's fine. You have choice. But it's definitely been a way that for my elderly patients, because now I work in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So I deal with a lot of people who are above the age of 70, and helping them understand the shifts that have come along with cannabis. And so my approach to it has been very helpful. And in that vulnerability, that's what made me, when you said vulnerability, made me think about those patients that I come in contact with that are older and had a completely different experience with the cannabis culture, and being able to have them know it's okay to do what makes them happy and makes them feel good right now.
Okay, circling back to the beginning of your answer, when you came across the patient who was already connected with medical cannabis, what was that perception like? Were you taken aback, or, we're not supposed to judge anyone, but we are human. Yeah. So was it like, oh, wow, I'm dealing with something I wasn't expecting? What was your original thought?
Yeah, I was like, this is drugs and nobody can know that I'm doing drugs.
Yeah.
I very much felt like, oh God, I have to hide this. I didn't know how to dose myself. We would take edibles and take way too much, and I would go into work and still be kind of loopy. And I'm like, this feels like drugs. This is not what I signed up for. And that's what really started getting me to research and understand, what do the different dosages mean? What does this mean for my body? What does it mean as a person who is a vegetarian and doesn't eat certain things like other people may? And I'm a pretty petite and small woman. So it's like, how does my body size and what I consume going to be different from my husband, who's 6'1" and 200 pounds? It's going to be two very different experiences. So it definitely felt like I was doing drugs, and I had to let that go and understand that, it feels that way because you don't know what you're doing. And so once you put some research and put some effort into your healing, then you'll have a completely different experience.
The confidence is a big factor. And that's why it's so amazing that health professionals are getting involved in this, because that's what the patients need.
Yes, definitely.
So you mentioned depression and how cannabis helped with that. And you can feel free to elaborate or share, how does the plant serve you? Once you got it down, how does the plant help you?
It really just, like I said, it felt like my chill pill with work, because of some negative experiences that I had in being a medical professional. I would get really anxious at work, or feel like I wasn't doing enough, like I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't experienced enough. Nobody was taking me seriously as a woman, as a Black woman in a position of power, because I started in the nursing homes in 2018. And then within 6 months, I had kind of been, quote unquote, promoted into being medical director of these different facilities. And I'm early 30s. And so people are looking at me like, what is this little girl going to tell me? And that can be very destructive to some. It was destructive and kind of violent in a way, but it allowed me to not be so harsh on myself and understand that their judgments has nothing to do with me. I know what I'm doing. I was put in this position for a reason. And it really, like I keep saying, it just let me take a breath, and I could just feel the relief in my body and say, okay, Troy, you got this. You're amazing. You can do this, and go ahead and get it done. And when that anxiety and that self-doubt that comes along with the depression wasn't there, I was at my best. And it just, and the difference that I felt when I wasn't consuming consistently, it was a marked difference in how I was able to show up in the world, whether it was for myself, my husband, dog, work, everything. It was definitely affected. Whether or not I was keeping my therapy appointments, like it really, it was all interconnected. And so once I realized that it made a difference, I kept it in my routine.
Yeah, I feel you on like having the breath and just having the space, because that's definitely when I call cannabis in. I felt like before cannabis came into my life, I was really reactive. And I still am.
Very reactive.
That's like, okay, I'm like not operating correctly right now. And then cannabis gives you that space, because I mean, especially if you're like a THC consumer, like you gotta like go off a little bit and like organize your thoughts, and then you can come back into the situation with new eyes, new perspectives.
A lot of times I tell my patients, because I like microdosing for people, especially that are professionals and have to stay mentally focused and have clarity about them. Microdosing, I think, is amazing. And so I tell people that when you get the right microdose, it feels like water off a duck's back. Like, whereas before, if somebody said something, I could snap and I could pop off, and you can't do that in a professional setting and be the angry Black woman and perpetuate all these things. But it allowed me to just say, okay, you know what? We're going to shift. How about we shift and try something else? Either it's going to work, it's not going to work, you're going to like it, or you're not going to like it, but we're going to shift. And so, whereas before I was not able to do that without there being some sort of physical and kind of gut wrenching reaction within me.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, because once you learn how to do that, once you find this consistency with doing that with cannabis, then it becomes easier to do it without.
100%.
And then you might be stuck in a situation where you can't microdose, where you can't have your medicine, and you're like, I can use these tools. I got this. Okay. So how do you serve the plant?
I think I serve the plant with my education aspect. So patients that come see me, or persons that come see me to get a medical cannabis card, or even when I do speak on certain platforms, is the education piece. A lot of people can talk about cannabis and how it helps and what you can, feel relief from. But when it comes to understanding why and explaining how to incorporate things in your life, because so many people are new to cannabis right now, especially being in Illinois, where there's adult use. People try it first and then they realize how helpful it is, but they don't really know what they're doing. So I serve as the bridge between what you think you need and what probably will work best for you. And so I really think that my service is in bridging that gap for patients who want to understand how the plant can be of use to them, and not just in a medicinal way, because sometimes adult use and relaxation is necessary. You need to decompress. It's just like sometimes you need to have a glass of wine, or you need to do something to relax, and having people understand that it's okay to do both, and that it doesn't have to feel like, oh, if I want to take more on a weekend when I'm hanging out with friends, that I'm being a bad patient, because balance is essential for so many things in our lives. So yeah, I would say as an educator, as a plant educator, is how I serve the plant.
Totally. And people want and need that so much as I don't want to say shift out of the current medical model, but I think things are changing for sure. And I think that cannabis is just like the intro to that fluidity between trusting themselves, but also still remaining in like a harmonious relationship with a provider. And I feel like, yes, you're that bridge for that, where they can say, hey, I'm not quite sure what to do on my own yet. Maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't, but at least they have someone they can trust, because I find that's been the hardest thing, is being able to refer people to professionals. And it's like, and I'm on a lot of, sometimes I'll be on Clubhouse and then I hear people do the default, and you have to do it because you have to save your own ass. You have to be like, talk to your doctor. But what if your doctor is completely against cannabis? That could be a dangerous situation for you to even bring it up. So I love that you're doing what you're doing and you're a safe space for patients, and they can come to you and talk about this as it's all new to them.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, because I definitely tell people, like, I can see the hesitancy when we're talking, and I'm like, well, how do you consume? How much? And they're like, I'm like, look, this is a safe space. I need to know what you're doing in order to understand how it's working well or working not so well for you. And then you can just see that they're like, okay, they relax, their shoulders come down, they, get down into their body a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, good. We're in a good spot. Like, you can just see the shift that takes place. And that always makes me feel so much better. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, then like, this wasn't so bad, we're just having a conversation. So yeah.
I feel like for so long, in my experience, going to the doctor has felt like meeting with like a mad dad. And I just like, don't really want to tell him what's going on or tell him the truth. And it's so strange, but I'm glad that we're breaking that. So what's the question that you get asked the most about cannabis? And then what is your answer?
One question that I get asked the most is really about, it comes in a variety of ways, but like how to help with anxiety. Anxiety and sleep, I would say, are the questions that I get asked the most, of like, how can I sleep better? Or how can I be less anxious? Or people don't say anxious, but they describe what anxiety is for them. And so the way that I answer is by just talking about what they're doing for their routine right now and figuring out their medications that they may already be taking, what types of cannabis they consume. I'm a big proponent of edibles. And I like the fact that especially for new consumers, the dosing is so predictable that, it's a good way for people to get started on their journey. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, it's really about dosing and treating like anxiety and poor sleep, because they go so hand in hand. And my answer is a culmination of whatever they tell me. And I just kind of figure out what works best. So it's very personalized, but it is a very common question.
Of course. Yeah, we got that a lot when I was working at Moon Mother Hemp. And even at the pharmacy, it would be interesting because I worked at a pharmacy that was very like functional medicine forward, different modalities. And that pharmacist would just straight up, people would be like, can I try this melatonin? I'm not sleeping. And she would just be like, I think you need to stop at a dispensary. She would just say that. And it was really refreshing. But the bud tenders, of course, can help you as much as they can. But leading back to your services, if you really want to dial in on supporting whatever it is you're looking at, see a doctor. That's an option now. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Bud tenders sometimes in the dispensary can be very dosage forward or percentage forward about how much you can take and what may be the strongest, or, and patients don't realize that they don't have to go to the very top of the mountain to be able to get relief. So
that's a good way of putting it. And really, a shift in the culture too. Wow. There's a lot in that. But cool. That's so interesting. Okay. So what are your favorite cannabis resources? If someone's like, get me started, what do you look to?
I really like Minorities for Medical Marijuana. That organization has opened my eyes to so many different resources, and they do webinars like once a month with different people in the industry. I find a lot of stuff on Instagram. Sorry.
I do.
like Can-Inclusive, just groups that share information on cannabis outside of like the medicinal part, because I can do the medicine part, I guess. There's like 2 books that I go to that are not in front of me. And then meeting people on Clubhouse and through social media, and just understanding from a different perspective how the plant and whole plant medicine has really helped others as well, has been a great resource. So I would just say people and meeting new people, because it's very easy in the world that we are in, especially since quarantine and COVID, to be isolated in your own bubble and think that what you have is, everything. But all these social platforms have really opened my eyes to how many different ways that you can totally consume the plant. Like, someone gave me some, I think it was CBG and sea moss capsules, and it was awesome. But I would never think to put those things together.
Yeah, I was gonna say I never heard that combo.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice, really mellow, and just I felt good, and then I felt like I was being healthy at the same time. So it was great.
Totally. I'm wondering, okay, so you work with the elderly mainly, and research is coming, but what would be like a topic of research that you would be really interested in seeing come up next?
I am really, and this is because of the changes that are happening in my life right now, I really want us to learn more about pregnancy and even lactating mothers and cannabis, because there's so much of, when you get pregnant, you have to stop. And then there's some schools of thoughts that say you don't have to stop, but there's no evidence. And it can be a very difficult transition for some people who are consuming consistently and getting a lot of benefits and relief from cannabis products. And then all of a sudden, because they peed on a stick and it got 2 lines, that everything changes, and what has been working and their methods of coping are no longer there in this very tumultuous time in their life where everything is changing in their bodies. So I really want that aspect to expand, because COVID babies are real. They keep coming. And cannabis consumption is going up. And so we need people who are birthing children to be able to know and understand what works for them, and not feel shame about wanting to maintain their mental health while also maintaining the health of their fetus or new infant. So
completely, definitely been there. And I try to answer as honestly as I can. I get that question probably the most in my hands. Like, what's your experience?
And it's so secretive. You have to feel kind of secretive about it. Like, people are going to judge you because I want to know. They think that you're not going to, you're not a good mom, or you're not a good parent because you have these questions, and they shouldn't feel that way. So I think that hopefully is the second wave of stigma reduction that we are able to get rid of.
The mamas, for sure. We got the mamas. Okay, if someone wants to get their medical card in Illinois, what do we do? How do we find you?
So I have a website, higherlevelhc.com. And on there you can book, you can find out more about my process, find out more about me. And then also in my social media handles, in my bio, Troy Alexis MD across on Instagram and Twitter. My link to my website is on there as well. So higher level HC, like healthcare.com, and Troy Alexis MD on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes. If you have any questions at all, please visit her website. There's so much information, a lot of FAQs, why should I get a card? What's the process like? Can we meet on Zoom? how long will it take to get my card? She's answered everything, and go for it.
Thank you. And my DMs are always open. So yeah, let's chat.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Troy. Anything else that you want to leave with the listeners today?
I want people to know that it's okay, like we talked about, to change your mind and to not know and start to do things for yourself. This time has been so life-changing for so many people that, taking a bet on yourself and trying cannabis or coming out the closet with cannabis, your cannabis consumption can make a world of difference. And so be proud about your cannabis consumption, because if it helps, then more power to you.
Yeah, we got to normalize it. I so hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. I hope that you have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You do the same.
Thank you so much for tuning in to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. If you connected with this episode, please share it with a friend who would benefit from hearing it too. Tap the subscribe button to be notified when the next 6 Degrees episode is released. You can find more information about holistic healing, the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck, and what I do by visiting ToriRerick.com. If you message us on Instagram at 6 Degrees from Cannabis, we'll be sure to message you back. Bliss be with you.